In our frantic quest for stability, we often mistake rigidity for strength. We build the house fortresses of opinion, armor ourselves with heavy expectations, believing that if we die furdic every caver portress ever is pious. Yet this effort to control the uncontrollable is the source of our deepest excession, a burden that formed down the spirit and forbidly answers. Now let us explore the profound wisdom found not in adding more, but in letting go. To understand the treachery of human maturity, we must first examine the starting point of the ordinary world, the aspersting creatures. When we speak of immaturity here, we are not speaking of age, for there are young souls with anginitis and pigas, coal spintrum of intravigence, the brain. We are speaking of a specific psychological posture, the posture out of clenched fist. The inexperiences taciousness operates from a place of profound separation. It perceives itself as a distinct entity that has been dropped into a universe, the pu universe than psi. Universe use exiles can allow. From this premise of separation, the logical emotional response is defense. If you are separate from the world, you must protect yourself from it. If you are not the river, you must build a dam. This defensive posture manifests as a relentless obsession with certainty. The immature mind is a master architect of how things ought to be. We draft internal scripts for our lives, for our partners, and for our carers. We visualize the future not as a mist of possibilities to be navigated, but as a railway's table that must be at a door. When the train of life arrives late, or on the wrong track, or perhaps dark at all, the inexperienced mind does not view this as a variation of nature. It views it as a personal affront. It feels like a violation of a contract that the universe never actually signed. This is the heavy armor of youthful certainty. It is Plato with the conviction that we know what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is right. Depends entirely on the world aligning with his rigid definitions. Consider the energy required to maintain this facade control. It is an exhausting enterprise. We spend our days engaging in what the philosopher Alan Watts might describe as Adam attempting to smooth out the water with the water. We are constantly trying to force the flight, chaotic, organic nature of reality to the square boxes of our constantly. We meet a new person and immediately the machinery of judgment wars to lie. Are they assailful? Are they threatening? Though they fit the archetype we understand, we resist the infinite complexity of a human bind to a label, a snapshot image. We do this because the static is safe. The static can be fired away. The living, breathing, changing reality of another person is unprodigal, and to the inexperienced is I am to mind. Unpredictability is essa, synonymous with danger. This struggle creates a pervasive background hum of anxiety. It is the anxiety of the actor who has forgotten their lines but refuses to improvise. We walk through the ordinary world carrying the immense weight of our own self-image. We believe that we must be seen a certain way, competent, successful, moral, attractive. We create these evaders with desperate precision. But the more rigid the aperture, the more fragile it becomes. A diamond is hard, yes, but if you strike it at the wrong angle, it shatters. The willow tree is soft, yet it survives the storm because it knows how to bow. The inexperienced mind has not yet learned the art of bowing. It stands stiff against the wind of experience, taking every gust as a challenge to its intuitive. This rigidity extends to our relationship with time. The immature perspective is perpetually leaned forward, living almost entirely in the next moment. We treat the present merely as a bridge to get to a better future, a waiting room where we enter time until the relevant how the reason. We enter the work with to get to the weekend. We enter the comments to get to the home. We enter the silence to get to the noise. We are never actually here, inhabiting the texture of the moment. We are always mentally leaning into the next hypothetical scenario, preparing our defenses or our speeches for cowards. Menelent, Talpenhaven uses you. This creates a ghost-like existence where we are physically present but spiritually absent. hovering just a few seconds at a real. The tragedy of this state is that in our attempt to secure our happiness, we hermetically seal ourselves from the very source of it. By armoring ourselves against pain, confusion, and loss, we inadvertently armor ourselves against joy, wonder, and intimacy. The shield that keeps the arrow also keeps the sunlight out. We become trapped inside our own definition. We think we want the perfect relationship, but what we want is a relationship that follows our script. When a partner deviation may show a flaw, a weakness, or a difference of opinion enter mind or partner, it tries to fix the other person, to sand down their edges until they fit back into the mental slot we prefer. We do not experience the person, we experience our projection of them, and we punish them when they fail to match it. This is the great paradox of the ordinary world. We believe that with the end of experience, we will finally figure out how to control everything. We think the maturity is the accumulation of tricks, techniques, and knowledge to finally subdue the dragon of chaos. We imagine the wise elder as someone who has built the ultimate fortress, impenetrable and secure, but this is the illusion that keeps us stuck. We are trying to solve the problem of insecurity by building thicker walls, unaware that the walls themselves are the problem. The walls create the illusion of inside and outside, self and me against the world. As long as we remain in this state, we are fighting a war that cannot be won. We are fighting the fundamental nature of impermanence. We are trying to hold water in our hands by clenching our fist tighter, unaware that the tighter we squeeze, the faster it slips to our fingers. We define ourselves by our attachments to our youth, our status, our beliefs, and because everything in this universe is in a constant state of flux, we are in a constant state of grave fear. We are terrified of the inevitable change the life brings because we have constructed our identity on the shifting sands of exterified estimated taste. This burden of the inexperienced spirits the belief that life is a problem to be solved there, than a reality to be experienced. It is a state of contraction, a holding of the breath. It is the refusal to excel because we are afraid we might not get in our breath. It is a life flat in the accusative case, pointing fingers at the world for not being what we wanted it to be. It is a heavy, joyous way to travel, dragging the luggage of shoulds and musts up the mountain of existence. And yet, it is where we'll begin. It is the necessary shell of the seed. But for the sprout to emerge, for the maturity to bloom, the cell must eventually encounter a pressure great enough to crack it open. Tapper is what we call experience. And so, the shell encounters the world. This is the essence of what we call experience. It is not merely the passage of time, for one can sit in a room for 80 years and remain entirely unjustismal. To behaviors detailed at the equation that be told us. This collision is really gentle. It is the friction that occurs when the map we have so carefully drawn does not match the territory we are traversing. In the hero's journey of the soul, this phase is the road of trials. It is here that the immature mind, armored in its certainty, meets the unique nature of the universe. We lose the job we defined ourselves by. The relationship we thought was eternal dissolve into silence. The health we took for ranifolders. These are not merely unfortunate events, they are metaphysical battering rams slamming against the gates of the EU. In Italy, our reaction to this friction is indignation. We cry out, why is this happening to me? This question betrays our fundamental misunderstanding. It assumes that there is a me support from the happening, a protagonist who is being unfairly targeted by a childish scriptwriter. We view the child as an error, a glitch in the system that must be fixed so we can return to our comfortable illusions. We double down on control. We analyze the breakup for the thousandth time, looking for the variable we missed. We work harder, weary faster, and grip the wheel tighter, convinced that if we just lie amplified in the force, we can bend reality back into the shape of our desires. But life, in its infinite mercy, refused to yield. This is the crucial turning point. If the universe were to acquiesce to our tantrums, if we always got what we wanted exactly when we would remain spiritual infants forever, trapped in the solipsistic belief that driven. Instead, the universe offers the gift of defeat. It defies our plans. It defies our projections. It defies the rigid image of who we thought we were. This process of defeat is painful, yes, but it is a creative feint. Consider the stones and arrive it. When they first tumble from the mountain, they are jagged, sharp, and distinct. They are full of edges, the catch and snag, but as they are subjected to the relentless current tumbled against one another, ground by the sand, watered by the which or something miraculous happens, these on become harder, they become smoother. The friction does not destroy them, it polishes them. This implies a radical redefinition of what it means to go through something. We often speak of trimar, our ship, as things that damage us scattered. But in this deeper analysis, the scar is not a defect, it is the place where the armor has been broken to let the light in. The jagged edges of our personality, our quick temper, harsh judgments, our need to be righter, the repair the things that case is firing. When we encounter a situation that frustrates us, it is usually because one of these jagged edges has caught on the fabric of reality. The pain is the sensation of that edge being ground down. Herefore, the person who has experienced it much is not someone who has merely survived a series of accidents. They are someone who has allowed the accidents to erode their resistance. They have been tumbled by the river until the sharp distinction between what I want and what is begins to blur. This is where the true philosophical inside of the mentor emerges. We begin to see that our suffering was never caused by the external event itself, but by our resistance to it. The anxiety wasn't caused by the uncertainty of the fear, it was caused by our demand for certainty. The heartbreak wasn't caused by the loss of the person, it was caused our clinging to the image of recession. The friction is the heat generated by the rubbing of erosions as the truth. As this friction continues, a profound shift occurs. We become disillusioned. In common parlance, disillusionment is a negative state, a synonym for cynicism or despair. But look at the word closely, disillusion. It literally means the removal of an illusion. To be disillusioned is to be stripped of a lie. It is to be brought closer to what is real. The mature mind is a disillusioned mind. It's cynical, but clear. It no longer projects a fantasy onto the world and then whips when the fantasy evaporates. It sees the thing itself. This clarity brings a strange, quiet kind of relief. When we finally accept that we cannot control the wind, we stop existing ourselves trying to blow against it. We stop trying to be the general of our lives and start becoming the witness. We realize that the voice in our head, the narrator, who has been endlessly commenting on everything, is not actually necessary for the skin to unfold. The sunrise without our permission, the heart beats without instruction, paths come and go without our authorship. The immense intelligence of the universe is functioning perfectly well without our micromanagement. In this space of surrendered control, the egolet tight kite of self-concern begins to loosen. We find that we are less easily offended because we are less defensive of our territory. Why defend a fur chest that has no walls? We become more compassionate, not because we have read a book on ethics, but because we recognize our own struggle in the eyes of everyone we meet. We know the pain of the jagged stone, and so we have patience for the one who is still sharp. This is the maturation of the emotional body. In our youth, our emotions are like flash flippant, destructive, and overwhelming. We are possessed by them. I am agree. We say, identifying completely with the temporary state. But the experienced soul, the polished stone, relates to emotions differently. They see anger as like a cloud formation. They watch it gather, they feel its rain, and they watch it disperse. These are not become the storm, they remain the sky in which the storm happens. This is not repression, it is vastness. It is the capacity to hold the tension of opposite joy and sorrow, gain and loss while tearing apart. For war, experience teaches us the folly of binary thinking. The inexperience assists the word in high contrast, success or failure, good or bad, friend or enemy. But as we traverse the landscape of life, we find that the boundaries are porous. The worst thing that ever happened to us, the layoff, the divers, the illness often turns out to be the catalyst for our greatest rose. The best thing the lottery win, the promotion may lead to our greatest confusion. We learn, as the Taoist farmers do, to look at every event and say, maybe. We lose the arrogance of knowing what is ultimately good or bad. We simply know that it is. This nuance allows us to sit with uncertainty. We no longer need to rush to a collision. We can inhabit the dawn no mind. This is a terrifying place for the beginner, but a sanctuary for the master. To not know is to be open to surprise. To not list to be alive to the mystery. The more we experience, the more we realize how little we actually know, and paradoxically, this ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. It is the Socratic admission that clears the slate. Ultimately, the friction of experience wears down the barrier between the internal and the external. We stop treating the world as a foreign object that must be manipulated and start treating it as an extension of our own being. We realized we are not separate from the trials we face. The waiter is not fighting the stone, the waiter is shaping the stone. The universe is not punishing you, it is sculpting you. It is chipping away everything that is not you, everything that is performative, everything that is fearful, everything that is people is only the essence remains. The struggle, then, is not a sign that we are feeling alive. It is the evidence we are being worked on. We are in the calm. The heat is intense, and the pressure is crushing, but it is this very heat that tie a vessel capable of holding water. Without the fire, we remain soft, formless, potential, but unable to serve. So, the hero stands in the center of the storm, no longer shouting at the thunder to be quiet, but listening to the rhythm of the rain. The armor is dented, the shield is cracked, and the sword is heavy, but the ease the owls are different now. They are no longer darting around in panic. They are steady. They have seen the worst, and they have seen that even the worst passes. This is the dawn of the return. A struggle has done its work. The friction has created a surface with a note to reflect the world as it truly is, not as we feared it to be. When the friction has worked, when the jagged edges of the ego have been sufficiently smoothed by the river of expressions, we arrive of expressionist the looks where presumptionist is work from work. We arrive at the return, but we do not return as conquerors laden with spoils. We return as something far more powerful. We return soft. This is the ultimate paradox of psychological maturity. We are taught to believe that experience will build a shell, a callus that protects us from the sting of the world. We imagine the wise elder as a stoic fortress, unfeeling and impenetrable, but the reality is the precise opposite. True maturity is not the hardening of the spirit, it is the softening of it. It is the realization that the only way to survive the storm without breaking is to become like the grass, not the oak. The oak is strong, rigid, and proud, but in the fiercest wind it snaps because it refuses to bend. The grass is humble, it bows completely to the gale, holding flat against the earth, and when the wind passes, it rises again unharmed. The mature mind has learned the art of bowing. This is not submission in the sense of defeat, it is submission in the sense of alignment. We stop racing against reality. We stop holding our breath. We stop treating every unexpected event as an intruder. Instead, we develop a quality of permeability. We let life move through us. When set as kinds, we don't build a dam to hold it back, we let it flow, knowing that like cold weather, it will eventually reach the sea and dissipate. When joy comes, we do not try to freeze it in a jar, we let it dance, knowing that its beauty lies in its fleeting nature. The shift in perspective fundamentally alters how we engage with the world. We move from the metaphor of the soldier to the metaphor of the damper. The soldier sees life as a train to be captured, a series of battles to be won. He is always vigilant, always tense, always guarding against the next attack. But the danger here is the music. The dancer knows that a misstep is not a failure of the dance, but a part of the choreography. If the music changes tempo, if life suddenly speeds up or slows down, the D's not argue with the orchestra. They simply adjust their rhythm. They flow with the change rather than stumbling over it. This fluidity is the hallmark of the experiential. It is what the Taoists call wu wei, or effortless action. It is the ability to act without forcing, to work without striving. We find that we can achieve more by doing less because we are no longer wasting too much of our energy fighting the current. We learn to spot the currents of life, the trends in our career, the moods of our partner, the energy of our own bodies, and we swim with them. We use the momentum of the world to propel us, rather than exhausting ourselves trying to swim upstream toward a past the momentum. With this softness comes a profound loss of self-importance. In the ordinary world, we believe we were the protagonist of a cosmic drama, that every event was ours. Experience relives as of this burden. We realize the traffic jam is not a personal insult, it is traffic. We realize in that someone's bad mood is not a commentary on our worth, it is just a passing weather system in their internal world. This decentering of the ego is incredibly liberating. It allows us to walk through the world lightly, without the heavy baggage of needing to be validated, understood, abide. We become transparent to the insults of others. They pass right through us because there is as no longer a solid arbit self for them to stick to. And perhaps the most beautiful sign of this maturity is the emergence of a sense of humor. Not the cynical, biting sarcasm of the disappointed analyst, but the warm, cosmic chuckle of the sage. We begin to see the absurdity of our own seriousness. We look back at our youthful anxieties, the nights we spent worrying about repetition, the tears we shed over trivial losses, and we smile. We see the great play of life for what it is, a game of hide and seek with a diamond. We stop trying to go in life and simply start playing it. We realize that the destination we were rushing toward was never a place on a map, but a state of mind we have insisted on in a moment. This is the victory of the hero. It is not a victory over the world, but a victory over the illusion of separation from the world. We return to the marketplace, to the office, to the family's dinner table, but we are changed. We chop wood and carry water, just as we did before, but now the wood and the water are luminous. The mundane becomes sacred because we have stopped covering it with the soot of our expectations. We have moved from the knowledge of the intellect, which section separates, to the wisdom of the heart, which entraces them the missions. We understand that every scar was ever a loss, was a lesson in letting go, and every friction was necessary to polish the mirror submersive of the seamer. We are no longer afraid of the future, for we know we have the capacity to metabolize whatever it brings. We are no longer at war with the past, for we see how perfectly it led us to this moment. We are simply here, fully present, soft, open, and alive. And so we discover that maturity is not a trophy we earn at the end of the struggle, but the quiet peace these remains when the struggle is evident. The price of this peace is high as our certainty, our pride, and our illusions of control. But what we receive in return is the world itself, no longer as an enemy to be conquered, but as a partner in the great, unfolding dance. Until next time, breathe.